Welcome back to The Explainer. I am so thrilled to have you here today because, wow, we are looking at a truly fascinating and, highly specific blueprint for human survival. Today's explainer is based on a translated 2024 text authored by Diaform Buddha, translated and edited by Chinyu, titled The Future of Humanity Should Be Like This. My goal today is to impartially map out exactly what this text proposes. It's a striking piece of writing, you guys. It attempts to diagnose the ultimate root causes of human suffering and offers a very unconventional, deeply structural set of solutions. So we are going to look objectively at the problem the author identifies, the critique of our current systems, and the precise roadmap proposed to ensure we literally don't wipe ourselves off the map. Let's get right into it.
Right off the bat, the text hooks us with a massive existential premise. Are we facing a fifth extinction? The author argues that our current human society is teetering on the absolute cliff edge of a massive crisis. We aren't just talking about a mild recession or a political shift here. The text frames our modern situation as an impending extinction event. According to the author, our current trajectory is entirely unsustainable, and it's actually driven by a profound internal collapse rather than just external factors.
Okay, let's dive into this. According to the author's interpretation of archaeological exploration, humanity has already faced extinction 4 separate times. Four. But here is the crucial point. The primary reason for these past four extinctions wasn't asteroids or ice ages. The author posits that the core driver of these cyclical collapses was overall spiritual degradation and what the text beautifully but warningly calls the dimming of the human heart. So, what exactly does this spiritual degradation actually look like? Well, the text is very specific in diagnosing these historical and current behaviors. The author identifies an obsessive pursuit of wealth, boundless greed, extravagant squandering, the pursuit of sensory pleasures, and a relentless quest for power. Furthermore, this dimming of the heart is characterized by a total disregard for the creator and a profound lack of appreciation for natural resources and life itself. The text argues that today, our frenzy for competing over survival resources has reached levels directly comparable to the periods preceding those four previous human extinctions. That is the stark warning the author is laying out for us. This brings us to Section 1, the modern system dilemma, and our current paths to collapse. The text transitions into a systematic critique of how our societies operate today. It evaluates the primary paths our modern societies currently use to manage survival, resources, and governance, ultimately arguing that our current options are entirely inadequate to prevent another collapse. And this brilliantly illustrates the core dilemma the author sees in modern governance. The text contrasts two primary paths and finds fatal flaws in both of them. On one side, the author argues that choosing socialist collectivization means the toiling masses can really only live in poverty, even if the overall human lifespan might extend. On the flip side, opting for market-oriented capitalism means the masses can lead affluent lives with maximal development of productivity, but it comes at a massive cost. We're talking shortened overall lifespans, severe depletion of natural resources, and an inevitable backlash from nature itself. The text presents this as a stark paradox where neither path is ideal for long-term survival. The author also briefly addresses other authoritarian paths, specifically military control. The text entirely dismisses this approach, labeling it as purely barbaric. According to the author, resorting to military governance is absolutely not a viable stabilizer. Instead, it is guaranteed to result in profound poverty and widespread societal chaos. So, with socialism, capitalism, and military control all rejected, what does the text actually propose? Let's look at Section 2, Shufeng-style communism, which the author outlines as the ideal path. Shifting gears here, the author moves from diagnosing failures to proposing a highly specific utopian framework meant to serve as the ideal path for humanity's future. The author is incredibly careful to make a sharp distinction, writing, "Please note, it is not the communism advocated and practiced by Marx, Lenin, Mao Zedong, but Shufeng-style communism. This is a completely distinct philosophical and logistical blueprint entirely unique to this author's vision." Now, what makes this particularly intriguing is that this specific Shui Fang-style model isn't just a theoretical thought experiment. No, the text claims this framework has actually been practiced on Earth for 15 years as a real-world proof of concept. The author points to a 15-year track record as solid proof of this alternative way of living.
Based on that 15-year practice, the author makes an incredibly bold logistical claim that this framework can permanently solve nearly 90% of the challenges humanity currently faces. 90%! The text specifically calls out real-world, deeply entrenched global problems. It claims this model completely eliminates territorial disputes between nations and permanently resolves elder support issues. For us as readers, it's fascinating to consider a system that claims to structurally remove the very concept of national borders or the individual burden of elder care, viewing them as systemic inefficiencies rather than inevitable facts of human life. Which brings us to Section 3, Values over Laws, and the concept of abolishing constitutions. Because think about it, if you eliminate national borders and traditional economic systems, how does this future society actually maintain order? Well, the text proposes a radical departure from how we currently understand governance and societal rules. The text argues that the more extensive and detailed constitutions, laws, and regulations become, the more problems inevitably arise. The author's logic is that an increase in laws requires an increase in management personnel, which in turn drastically drives up the operational costs of society. Therefore, the text concludes that to achieve this ideal future, all existing constitutions, laws, and regulations must be completely abolished. It views traditional legal frameworks as burdensome rather than protective. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is figuring out what replaces those abolished laws. Without a legal system, society relies entirely on shared internal principles. The text reveals that the author has specifically prepared 800 values for new era humanity. These 800 values are intended to entirely replace the function of courts, police, and legislation, ensuring the orderly functioning of society completely from the inside out. But how do you get an entire global population to successfully adopt 800 shared values? The text states that a final, absolutely mandatory step is required. To live a happy life and ensure our continued existence and effectively avoid that fifth extinction we talked about, all humans must undergo what the author defines as a spiritual purification. The author notes that a specific course for this spiritual purification has already been prepared, acting as the necessary bridge between our current degraded state and this proposed orderly, value-driven future. Which brings us to a compelling final thought. By mapping out the source text today, we've walked through a stark critique of capitalism, socialism, and legalism, arriving at a highly specific utopian vision. It forces us to ask, as we look at the very real global challenges of resource depletion and societal division, does the ultimate key to human survival rely on building stricter laws and more efficient economic engines? Or does it demand a fundamental shift toward shared spiritual values? It's a profound thought experiment on how societies balance wealth, longevity, and sustainability. Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning the blueprints of our future.